Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had an amazing weekend so far. Today, we're going to be diving into our daily cryptocurrency market update. There is so much taking place within the crypto space. Sometimes it can be hard to keep track of it all. That's what these videos really try and do. We try and simplify everything, give you an overall direction, go over some of the main things happening within the crypto space. And not only that, look at the external financial world that surrounds us. As we know, there is a correlation there given everything that is going on a kind of macroeconomic scale, geopolitical scale, and of course, monetary policy scale currently within the US. So let's get into it, guys. I'll break down what we're going to be going over. We're going to be diving into Bitcoin on the chart. We did see a nice little move up yesterday. Typically, that does get squashed on a Sunday, but we are potentially setting up in the right direction. We're going to be looking at this from Willy Woo, talking about the fact that Bitcoin is being accumulated. And this is always the case on pullbacks. You've got to remember that many people, many of your big whales have the same kind of ideology that I have, and that is that blockchain is a technology that's very early on its adoption curve, and there's a lot of value that's still to come and get locked into our space. We are, only really just started the race that we are on. We'll be diving into Ethereum. We know that there is essentially now a record low number, the lowest number of Ethereum on exchanges since 2018. Ethereum does look like it has broken out. They do have quite a bit coming for them. And it's very common in actual fact that once you do something like this, you will come back to retest the point of breakout before you get that continuation, which potentially could be setting up for Ethereum at the moment. So I'll be talking about that. I'm going to play you a clip from Senator Warren. There's essentially been a cryptocurrency hearing with the senators talking about the use of crypto in illicit activity. She's very bipolar, Miss Warren, or Mrs. Warren, and essentially, sometimes she's for it, sometimes she's against it, but here she's actually putting the argument across that crypto is going to be used and would be a suitable tool for some of the people who have had sanctions levied against them in Russia to use as a bypass to them. I would argue that's not the case. I would argue that potentially there are better methods such as cash, US dollars, gold, assets, a number of other things that don't actually have a cyber trail, a paper trail, if you will, or a digital trail in the cryptocurrency space. You've got to remember that blockchains typically are public ledgers. And if you wanted to, and it's how they've caught many people to date that have used Bitcoin and crypto for illicit activities, you can track transactions. And yes, there are other things like mixers and a number of other things, but you can still sort of undo these. So we'll listen to some of her statements. This is always going to be a threat levied upon the crypto space. And one thing that you see with any emerging technology is it's always met with a huge degree of skepticism. To begin with, when the car industry came out, it was, millions of people were going to die. It was extremely dangerous, who knows what kind of stories were made up about it. Same thing with televisions, the internet, and so on and so forth. Now, some of those things potentially have come true later on down the line, but at the same time, it's rather unfair and really just shows that she doesn't quite understand crypto. However, this is an argument that's been levied against us currently. We're talking about BlackRock. Sees more downside in the short term and is holding more cash than normal. Remember, there is still a lot of uncertainty across markets generally, not just crypto. Global markets right now are in a very uncertain time period. We've seen abnormal, I should say, movements for the likes of commodities and a number of other things, given everything that's taking place with Russia right now. This was the article in regards to Ethereum having record low levels since 2018. But we've also got this, which I think is worth noting. Biden warns Xi of global backlash if China helps Russia attacks on Ukraine. So China are kind of in a very powerful position here as potentially one of Russia's only main allies. They've got a number of allies, but one of their big global allies. And essentially, we've seen the backlash of sanctions against Russia in regards to food prices, in regards to a further crunch on economies. Certain parts of Europe, I'm predicting, are going to get hit really heavily, like Germany, which is very dependent on Russian natural resources. Now, what happens if we then levy sanctions against China as a result of working with Russia, that would kind of restrict a further clampdown, which is why I think the likes of BlackRock and a number of other people are holding a bit of dry powder, a bit of cash on the side, ready to deploy back into markets. But the key there is deploy back into markets at some point. That's what people are waiting for. Most people who have exited markets are exiting it to take risk off the table, only to re-enter it when things kind of start to come back to normal, which is what we're ultimately expecting. So that was a long intro. Let's get into it. The cryptocurrency markets are a nice little uptick yesterday. Kind of flat today. We haven't seen a kind of slam down, but it's still early on a Sunday. We know where crypto is currently at. We're sort of trading in this range at the moment. And essentially we are at the wrong side of what I would call the sort of midway point. And we haven't actually broken out of what I would say is an ascending triangle. Lots of people calling for this a symmetrical triangle going from here. I think in a more sort of short-term time scale, what you have at the moment is something like this kind of a pattern where you're sort of coiling up to receive a breakout in opposition with something similar to this, which would typically be a continuation pattern, whereas a symmetrical triangle would more than likely be, on balanced probabilities, a break to the downside. So we'll see how this plays out. We know where we're kind of at. Overall, I'm more bullish for Bitcoin than I am bearish currently. This is from Willy Woo, who is a fantastic on-chain analytics spokesperson, if you will, for Bitcoin, and has really made his name as that. You can see here he's highlighting that Bitcoin is being accumulated, and we see this as a common trend on every pullback. Again, lots of whales have similar ideologies to what I have, and that is that, you know, crypto is only going one way, and that is up, unless there's some sort of an extremely catastrophic event. But at that point, you know, everything would kind of be on the rocks. So Ethereum balance on crypto exchanges falls to the lowest level since 2018. It has indeed. So Ethereum has continuously been going off exchanges. You got to remember, Ethereum actually has a lot coming for it. When they do eventually deploy ETH2, it will take a lot of the supply from miners off the table. It will also mean people will actually lock up their Ethereum. There's kind of a fundamental chain shift that's coming for them that could actually be very bullish for the chain. And we know certainly if balances on exchanges are anything to go by, you know, we are seeing that kind of come into effect. So this is some of what Senator Warren essentially had to say. I'll play this for you, and then we'll move on with a video dive into these last two. And I'll love you and leave you to your Sundays.
The cryptocurrency market has exploded over the past few years, with the volume of crypto transactions reaching nearly $16 trillion last year. That's up about 600% just from 2020. Now, most of that growth has been driven by speculation and gambling, but we also know that crypto provides a new payment option for criminals and cheats. And it's how those who attack our systems with ransomware collect their money with the least risk that they will be caught. In fact, according to one of our witnesses who's here with us today, about 3/4 of the money collected in ransomware attacks last year went to Russia-linked actors. So Russians certainly know how to run illegal scams through crypto. And we know that other countries have used crypto to evade sanctions. Mr. Levin, your company tracks illicit finance in crypto. Do you know which countries have already used crypto to evade sanctions?
We'll leave that there. What that really was me giving you a kind of viewpoint on one of the attacks that's been levied against Bitcoin and crypto at the moment. She does have kind of half of, I would say maybe a fifth of a point there in regards to, yes, we have seen you know, the use of crypto in avoiding or in illicit activity. But what is not used in illicit activity? Gold is used in it. The most illicit used, or one of the most linked with illicit activities, currencies that there is the US dollar. It is the most, and it is probably the best thing to use. We made a video ages ago talking about it's a bad idea to do anything illicit with Bitcoin because it can be tracked by the right people. You've got to remember, theoretically, you could, if you wanted to, and you had the time on your hands to do it, you could start from today and go all the way back to the Genesis block with Bitcoin. It's how blockchain works. It essentially is a mutable ledger that stores transactions within blocks, that's connected on a chain and sort of cryptographically sealed. So she doesn't really understand that you know, it might not be the best thing to use. Is it going to be used for some illicit things? Absolutely. But what isn't? You know, it's not a very fair argument where you're ignoring the fact that US dollar is the most used for illicit activities currency that there is, and probably the best in terms of cash. There are some properties that would make crypto good, but in regards to volume, Shaletta goes on to call it a $3 trillion industry. It's $1.8 trillion currently. And in actual fact, you know, I just don't think that when she's talking about the amount of, you know, she's talking about it being used as the main avoider of sanctions. There is absolutely not the liquidity in the crypto space. Not only that, you would see it extremely fast show up. The second people start dropping hundreds of millions or billions into the crypto space, your on-chain analytics would show that, and you could deal with it accordingly and really pinpoint those areas if you wanted to. So it's quite a straw man that's being made. There's probably external reasons for her levying this argument. She may have a dog in this fight. In fact, I would argue that she probably does, like a lot of the other senators. And if you look at, and we've shown you guys on our Twitter, the amount of senators and congressional members and people in the government that actually traded March 2020 perfectly and actually bought oil, gas, and war stocks before all of this even happened, it's absolutely scandalous. But that's a bit of a side note. So that is certainly, we've got to watch how this situation unfolds. I think it ultimately comes to nothing because people are a lot smarter than just seeing one side of an argument. And you know, this is Jerome Powell's words, a burning industry that is really yet to be regulated and grow and take its sort of natural course. So we've got this comments from BlackRock. Of course, natural that your big institutions are going to take risk off the table, given everything that we're facing. And this is some of it. We did have, Russia actually had a number of payments, debt payments, sovereign debt payments that they actually made, which I was quite surprised about, given the fact they've had these sanctions launched against them. But there are other external niggles, if you will, that could flare up into quite major events. And we've seen with sanctions levied against Russia, a lot of commodities go through the roof because they're big suppliers of this. Also, Ukraine is, and they're tied up at the moment. If we then have to sanction China for their helping of Russia, who is another big distributor globally, an extra crunch put on the economy and everything. So there's still a lot of uncertainty on the markets. It's why we tell you guys not to FOMO in, because these are not FOMOing markets. These are markets that there's lots of traders driving them at the moment. They're geopolitically driven, macroeconomically driven, and monetary policy driven. They're not flourishing bull market that was caused by March 2020 that pumped a load of liquidity into the system, and you saw equities, commodities, and stocks all benefit as equities, commodities, and cryptos all benefit as a result of this. So that is really all I have for you in this video. It's just an update on everything. So much going on within the crypto. These are some of the main things. We'll see how Sunday ends, and we'll see what the week brings us. I would like to see a nice green week. There are a number of things that do indeed suggest this, like where we are for RSI. What was it that we looked at yesterday? I think it was the MACD that we looked at yesterday. That I really like the look of on the weekly, because you are potentially, we love to leave the draw tool on this channel. You are potentially setting up for a bullish cross. And historically, every time you've had one of these, you've seen a move to the upside. But I'm rambling on now, guys. That is really all I have for you in this video. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gents.